Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Peace Dealer, and I would like to transmit a very important message that is along the vein of the angel demon war that is getting ready to kick off more prevalently during this full moon. Okay, I want to really invite you to notice how much more out there what I express and say is, especially relative to your willingness and ability to compare it to what may be discoursed in mainstream or what's considered acceptable. And with that in mind, I want to make sure that how I express this isn't within the confines of a box or within a way that makes sense, which will be betrayed by the language I'm using. But the purpose of me saying that really comes in, especially if you have understandings of this concept that are outside the norm of what is even considered possible. So your experience with this will really be as unique as you. So take what I say with a grain of salt, because it's effectively taking abstract metaphysical concepts and unseen principles and basically using the best words I can explain to make sense of how it plays out through here. If you think that life is a projector that projects spiritual consciousness onto this physical material reality, or is the manifestation of that, then what I'm effectively talking about here is the intergalactic frame wars. And this is a 3-part series I'm going to lightly cover and just kind of talk about, but I'm going to actually incorporate this into season 2 of World War Zero or 3, but I'm probably going to put it in season 2. So the disclaimer of what I wanted to say is a major aspect of this frame war, obviously, and just to kind of clarify, the intergalactic frame war is an intergalactic, interdimensional space-time and time-space conflict that spans various lifetimes outside of our ability to perceive, this linear time-space, or space-time, rather, that represents through frequency battles or frequency fights and vibrational battles, the attempt to constantly change your frame. This is an element of neurolinguistic programming that you may not be the most conscious of, because especially in the way we're raised or in the way we kind of go about society, we're kind of influenced to allow these things to happen, or to be made to feel weird if we kind of speak up against that. And what I'm talking about in its most basic sense is the fact that whenever anyone attempts to persuade you, especially when someone tells you the word should, you're entering the realm of persuasion. When anyone attempts to persuade you and to align your mind and perspective against truth, that is witchcraft. That is actually a form of witchcraft. That's genjutsu, that's juju. It happens so common in how pop culture and social norms have a small talk and debate with each other, that if you don't understand the spirit behind most things, and this is the deception of many dark forces, on the surface things can look innocent in a certain way, but when you understand the spirit behind something, that's why certain people react harshly to things that don't make sense to other people, because they see the spirit or intent behind certain things. So with that being said, this is something everyone's going through. It's not really like a good side versus bad side, as much as a collective influence that people individually go through in their own way and define who they are based on their actions of character. But I want to once again bring to your attention that, given the nature of this frame war, neurolinguistically in your programming, you set frames in order to experience how you think. These are presuppositions you may not always be conscious of. When you wake up in the morning and you smile and you're happy and you're going to have a great day, you're operating off of the presupposition that my day is going to be great. That's the frame you're setting. Okay? There's so many layers to this. This is a very multi-layered, psychologically manipulative plot to constantly have you reinforce a false frame. Okay? When you think about the efforts of marketers and advertisers, experts, influencers who are paid money to spit rhetoric so that they can peer pressure entire collectives in order to believe certain things, it's really an attempt to change your frame. So there's the social aspect of it, but here's the real aspect of this, in that many of you are still not awakened to the fact that there are vibrations and energies beyond your physical brain's ability to process that still exist, that vibrate so much faster, that exist in a non-physical sense. We call this metaphysical. So, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to make sure that the way I say this is as crazy as possible, because one common frame is that if you operate outside the box of what's considered normal, you're crazy. But it's really stupid people who think you're crazy. So I want to open you up to the fact that visibly and non-visibly you are, and this isn't necessarily a good or bad thing, it's just as simple as energy hitting you, wind elements hitting you. You are bombarded by negative frequencies. You can take that and hear that and be like, I'm a victim. Or you could take that and hear that and be like, okay, let me put on the armor of God real quick. Like, let me rectify this. So there's a very important understanding and concept of metaphysical beings, essences, and projections, frequency battles, and vibration battles and frequency fights where thoughts are being projected. You know, thoughts are things. Philosophies and rhetoric clash. The unconscious nature of how you feel that may be suppressed gets transmitted. And so your subconscious is processing the infinite variables of all these things getting projected at once, and your brain can only process so much. You might feel it as a feeling, or maybe you're a water sign and you really feel it. Maybe you're a fire sign and you see it. The reason why this is very important is that this is not necessarily an intergalactic, interdimensional conflict that's new. The facet of this is that it's reaching its conclusion and turning point. So over the past 2 years especially, you found that your relationship with this conflict and frequency fight is, relative to the past 10, 20 years, so much more different, so much more in your ability to expose what's happening and break out the false frames that keep you stuck in a box. Okay? This frame war is very important because of how subtle it is, and because how anyone can get it. It doesn't matter who you are. And so it's common to go through this with people close to you, but you know, subtle frame wars or skirmishes can happen with people who mean well. Okay, so the first and foremost is to really be clear on yourself with what frames are you setting in your life, because once you're aware of that, you'll be aware of the subtle ways that people are either used or willingly seek to change that. And now, given this turning point, because we're reaching the end of Neptune in Pisces, the end of Saturn in Pisces, eventually the end of Pluto in Capricorn, this unique time period, as you're experiencing, and this is where, don't take my word for this, the whole notion that I'm saying like alien frequencies, ghosts and unseen entities, witches, people who use their mental power to project negativity at you, this sounds like craziness to a lot of people, but it's just real. It's just basic science. It's not an uncommon phenomenon. It's just in the ways we've been deceived to accept it, you're awakening out of it. And because this is a metaphysical experience, it exists outside the bounds of what's scientifically accepted, mainstream, stereotypically accepted, and that is really just, once again, a false presupposition to threaten you with fear of being ostracized or being seen as weird to really express these things. If you're not, oh, think about the fact that many of you are afraid to even express these things. You don't want to be seen as crazy. That's why I go out my way to just like crust in the eyes. Like I don't, it's not an excuse to not use makeup, but like I don't want necessarily beauty to be the reason why you're watching me. So I could let you know that, you know, I don't give a fuck. Like I'm just going to tell you the truth. So keep this in mind, because once again, the frames that you are setting in place to maintain your alignment with truth hijacks you into this war where you're going to attract opposing frequencies that see you as a threat. You're minding your business, walking your path. Every time you align in truth to do what's right, you are a threat to forces and essences that deviate from that. It's nothing you have to take personal. This is going to help you understand even more why people react to certain actions you take that are right. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, the key facet of this, which is the huge turning point, and it's something unique to this generation, the capacity with which you're able to expose the depth of psychological manipulation and intention behind these dynamics, and in a way you can integrate it with experiences with other people, is giving you a leverage over these influences that hasn't been had in ages. And so this is manifesting itself in more extreme psychic attacks, more deception, more gaslighting. The enemy you're dealing with is so weak, they can only rely on deception, fear, coercion. The worst people can do to you is try and hurt your body. You're awakening to the fact that you have a spirit and soul, and that certain tactics cannot be used to control you like they were applauded to be used before. So once again, the reason why I want to be clear here is over the next 6 months to a year, the same forces that had an unprecedented amount of leverage over you has lost it overnight. And this might feel uncomfortable at first, where you're starting to feel more power to maintain your frame and to expose how your frame is being changed. A lot of the subtle mechanics and maneuvers that you may have been taught as a kid was just how things happen. You're seeing through. You're seeing through how you might be gaslighted for believing or acting in a certain way. You're seeing through how certain compliments are not really compliments, but just ways to reinforce a suppressed version of yourself. And you're seeing through the supernatural element of energy projections towards you. The veil is being lifted through the Saturn Pisces transit. And what it's going to do is, for those of you who've always known this was happening and people were calling you crazy, you're going to be like, I fucking knew it. For those of you who were unclear, it's going to be a very rude awakening. And so this isn't for you to cower in fear and be like, I'm being mentally projected. It's for you to just accept what's been happening, what happens to everyone, and for you to activate your power and deal with it, okay? Everyone has a unique ability, but what's very key about this is, given the frequency fights and vibrational battles, now that this leverage is being had, you're going to be attacked so much more. However, with this greater newfound leverage, you have greater newfound power. Get to blasting. In part 2 of this installment, I'm going to talk about the 3 types of souls and how your special powers within your souls help you fight this war. Do you have your moon in Capricorn, Aries, Libra, or Cancer? You have your power. You have a power soul. Do you have it in mutable signs? You have a magic soul, Gemini, Sag, Virgo, Pisces. Do you have it in Scorpio, Taurus, Aqua, and Leo? You have an energy soul or currency soul, soul currency. Okay. Of course, power souls are going to be influenced and manipulated to take actions. Magic souls are going to be influenced and manipulated to see things in a certain way, and energy souls are just going to be used for their energy. Don't let your frame be changed. Don't let this happen. And have to cut the video short, but let me know what you think about this concept. Godspeed, y'all.